Frank Holmes, thanks so much for joining us on Wall Street Unplugged again.
It's great to be with you, Frank and Frank show.
The Frank and Frank show, you guys. So, I mean, you are in the perfect industry right now, right? I mean, you got the travel-related stock with the Jets ETF. Gold, I think, is fantastic right now. It has sold off, one of the cheap sectors around. I think, with everything going on, we'll talk about gold later. But more important is Hive Technologies, right, which you are non-executive chairman, I believe, for Hive Technologies. And you have been involved in crypto for a long time, which is awesome. And even taught me a lot about this. And we talk about, 3, 4, 5 years now, probably even longer. But talk about Hive Technologies for people who are learning about the first time, because you just reported numbers, blowout numbers, record everything, income, cash flow. It'd be really great numbers. Explain exactly what that is to someone who's just, learning about crypto, which, my file is pretty, smart about crypto because we have our own security token for Curzio research. But just talk a little bit about this so get more familiar with the mining process.
Well, what happened in the mining business, I tried to launch an ETF in Bitcoin, and I quickly realized, due to concerns on anti-money laundering laws and KYC, know your customer, the SEC was not going to let it happen. And so then I went and got involved in launching the first crypto mining company, mining on an industrial scale. First was Ethereum, which is the second biggest currency in the world. And first was, and the biggest, is everyone knows, is Bitcoin. And what happens for those that don't understand the business is that, and for Bitcoin, it's simple. Every 10 minutes, you can think of a drop puck, and it's so competitive that the fastest computers run in to try to validate 64 digits to say that this is a good transaction. And if you're the winner, you get brand new, fresh Bitcoins, virgin Bitcoins. So therefore, I would never have a money laundering concern because I'm the creator of all new coins. And the same thing happens with Ethereum. Ethereum's time cycle is much shorter than 10 minutes, and the numbers are bigger. So that's what we got into, like mining gold or mining silver. That's why I like to look at it. And when you're mining Ethereum, you're like a silver miner. And Ethereum has more volatility than Bitcoin. And it has been a spectacular run last year. Bitcoin was up 300%. Ethereum was up 470%. And Hive, because it's the only one mining Ethereum and Bitcoin, we were up 2,500%. And it's now being validated. We came up with our 9-month earnings, and we are the most profitable of all the crypto mining companies with the least amount of dilution of shares, and internally the most profitable.
Now, there was some concerns on your call that everybody knows, right? They're all talking about it. They talk about gas fees for Ethereum have skyrocketed, so they're looking for alternatives. But you have Ethereum 2.0 coming out, which is probably going to be rolled out in the next, if I'd say 18 months, 24 months. But they see the problem in addressing it. You address that. And also, mining is a capital-intense business because it's not the easiest thing to scale unless you have access to low electricity forever. But you have to buy more computers, more systems, more ant miners, whatever it is, to mine this stuff. And I know that you need the fastest chips in that. We're seeing a chip supply shortage, but you say you were able to upgrade 60% of your mining equipment. How are you dealing with those headwinds? Because I love the fact that you're addressing them when you see them in front of you, know how to address them, but they are serious concerns, right?
Well, the big concern with COVID is just logistics and the battle with China in the U.S. right now. If you're shipping things in by ship, the shipping container rates have gone from 2,000 to 7,000. And it takes a month to get your stuff unloaded. And the rentals now have gone from, say, $1,000 to $12,000 for a monthly container rental. It's very, very expensive. And the times of delay. So we are experiencing that. And we did tell the shareholders, upgrading, sending chips over to China, upgrading them, sending them back, reloading them. There's just lots of delays and disappointments. And I don't think it's going to go away. We saw this with jets. What happened when you think of the crisis of a year ago on April the 15th, less than 90,000 people flew in the world. And the busiest airport in the world was Anchorage. Because it was moving medical equipment from Asia over to Europe and the U.S. So with that, now the airlines has boomed back, but still the logistics is a long way to go. And I think the cargo airlines are making a ton of money. Airlines themselves are trying to put as much cargo can underneath because the rates are so great. And so we are experiencing that. But we have been able to get equipment. Relationships are so important, Frank. Just like the two of us, we have a good long-term trust, and that relationship is important. On the trust factor, the same thing happens with getting stuff from China. And on my hours, I get up at 3:30 in the morning because I'm going to be phoning Europe, and I can hook in with China, being able to make sure we're getting the equipment. A lot of the bigger companies that like market caps are riot. They've gone from 25 million shares to 75 million shares in 1 year. And with all that cash they've raised, they've gone out and bought all of Bitmain. And then same thing has happened with Marathon. It's gone from 10 million shares out to 80 million shares. Unbelievable dilution, but they've tied up all the equipment. And now there's a shortage of these basic GPU chips because of COVID. All these kids stuck at home are playing games, or they're learning, buying their iPad. G5 is being rolled out, the car industry. So we're seeing that this whole year of 21 going into 22, there's going to be a chip shortage. And so if you don't get your chips on, you don't get your equipment on time, then that'll be a problem. And we feel very comfortable where we are today. We'd expect it to be by the end of February, 100%, but it's just the ongoing delays that we're over 65% and we'll get to the 100 of that upgrading. But we're able to buy new equipment. It's being delivered. We wanted to diversify the risk. We didn't want to have just Bitmain because we found last year Bitmain was slow in delivery. So we wanted to diversify what we're doing. The same thing in running the business. We're mining Ethereum in Sweden and Iceland, but the big Bitcoin operations are expanding in La Chute, Quebec, which we bought last year. And now we have in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, 50 new megawatt facility. We own the land. It's going to be a balance sheet item, which is great for us. But we're going to expand that to 60 megawatts, and we're going to be mining Bitcoin there. So we have the electricity. We have inexpensive electricity, and we have only green energy, where some of these other companies are using coal in Montana to mining. And there's a big backlash now in China over using coal. I think it's a perfect storm that we can see Bitcoin have a huge rally, even greater than what we're seeing, because there's no equipment. Unless you secure the equipment or you secure cheap electricity, if they shut down China, in Inner Mongolia, the Chinese are already looking in America. They're looking in Europe. There's no other source of power. They're not going to get it. So we're going to have that perfect storm of where there's supply restrictions like you've seen in the copper market, and copper goes to 8-year high because demand is picking up. And we're going to see demand for Bitcoin, Ethereum, but the supply of it is going to shrink.
I love this, Frank. You're all fired up today. I like it. So there's one more thing I think that creates a big competitive advantage for you guys is just, Canada, Sweden, Iceland. You talked about that, right? About those areas of where you operate in. But now we're seeing environmentalists come out. You've dealt with them when it comes to mining and how difficult they can make things. A lot of it's political. But now you're seeing them come out and say how much electricity that the mining uses for Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. But you are using alternative renewable energy, right? Talk about that. I think that creates a massive competitive advantage for you guys, at least over your competitors. But I want to hear from you. How big is that? Is that significant? Are you hearing that from maybe investors or from shareholders saying, hey, you need to be into renewable energies? And because a lot of companies are basically forcing the issues based on environmental concerns right now.
Well, we have a very strong understanding, and being a fund manager, of seeing that paradigm shift take place in the capital markets of the operative words ESG. We have, I think, the strongest leadership and positioning and having an ESG footprint. What we've done in the boating community in Sweden, what we'll be doing in New Brunswick, it's important in that community, and we will only deal in green energy. We've had some other opportunities come to us, but we've just backed away because it's not green. And so that will be a key focus going down the road. And also community involvement and giving back. So there's education in Bowden for the gaming and coding, helping young kids so that they can learn and get a career path in coding. The biggest sport there is hockey. So the kids that can't afford to go, that we make sure we have our own section, that we get tickets for all these kids so they can be involved with it. So that's our sort of community footprint. So I'm coming back on what's happening in Argentina is currency controls. So places like Venezuela, the only way to get money out, and what I've learned is these ATM machines that are out there where you can buy Bitcoin or upload and get your Bitcoin out and convert, that is basically in Miami, in Orlando, Florida. there's lots of machines because of all the Brazilians, and Venezuelans, and Argentines, because of bad governments. And in Europe, you're seeing it in London because of all the bad governments in Africa. So there's a currency destruction in these other countries. Intelligent, rational people are saying, how do I protect what I have? If I don't own gold, what do I do to protect? And so the fastest way in the digital world is to make sure you own some Bitcoin, and more sophisticated going for the smart contract of Ethereum. Now, I forgot something that's really important in Ethereum. I have been hearing about Ethereum 2.0 since I first launched Hive Blockchain. And it's always this big boogeyman. It just started in December, a couple months ago. And all it did was take $5 billion of inventory out. So actually it's shrinking supply, and people are earning an income on that yield, but those coins are not going to come back in the system. So if you have the rise in stable coins by JP Morgan banks and other banks copying JP Morgan, and you have DeFi exploding, the use for Ethereum is also going up exponentially. So that makes that the supply side is being constricted, demand is picking up. I think Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin again this year.
No, that's great stuff. And I'm going to bring this up here with the Hive blockchain here and just show you. And I know you wanted me to talk about one thing right here. So Ethereum mining revenue, and just to show the numbers here. And I've been part of this journey the whole entire time. I'm still a shareholder in this company, but talk a little bit about this here, the mining revenue monthly, how, it's exploding. And guys, this is where Bitcoin is. Say it's a 50,000 today. It could be, by the time you listen to this, we're going to publish this 3 hours later. It could be 40,000 or 60,000, who knows? But talk a little bit about this, because if you're a real believer that Bitcoin's going higher, Ethereum's going higher, I mean, this line right here, at the right, is going to go a lot higher as well, right?
Absolutely. And the transaction fees, they're just big bonuses for us. And you can have access to new chips. We're securing and procuring, and we've secured now more and more chips so that we can go and increase our footprint to 30 megawatts of mining Ethereum. And so I just think it's a very bullish scenario for us. We're the only crypto mining company offering two. And we keep these coins on our balance sheet in addition to selling some to pay for electricity. But this year, we've done nothing but build our inventory again. We had to sell coins last year to buy all this new equipment. Now we're just replenishing it, and it's all working out perfectly for us. What's also interesting, Frank, is that a lot of these other companies, they've diluted their shares so much that even when they turn on with their production later this year, on a per share basis, they really are not going to have big numbers. It's been massively dilutive.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. So before we go here, because great of Ethereum, of Hive, you also might for Bitcoin. I want to talk to you about Bitcoin. You have your pulse on institutional investors. We're seeing Goldman Sachs now getting into it more after saying they're not getting into custody and trading and stuff like that. We've seen some of the top hedge fund managers in the world, the Ray Dalios, Drunken Millers, Paul Tudor Jones, change their mind on this after they saw it. And I don't know if it's the common sense where we're a digital world now, so a digital currency makes sense. But where do you see this ending up with Tesla? You have buying it for the cash balances. A lot of companies, you look at Square, 5% of its cash, on the balance sheet is in Bitcoin. And then you look at a company like BlackRock, who said they're exploring it, who now we're talking $9 trillion in assets under management. I mean, if they just go 1%, even, 0.5% of that, you're looking at $45 billion flowing into Bitcoin. But where do you see this in terms of the institutional adoption? Is this for real? Do you think it's going a lot higher? I just want to get your thoughts on Bitcoin here.
Well, it's called Metcalfe's Law, Frank. Metcalfe's Law is the best way to explain the exponential growth of what can take place. Remember that supply, if you have the supply of gold production, 100 million ounces a year went to 50 million ounces, gold would be 10,000. And what happened last year is that Bitcoin supply every 10 minutes halved. And there's more wallets that people are buying, and they can buy fractals. If you open an account at Robinhood or even a PayPal account, you can buy Bitcoin, and you can buy a fraction of that coin. So as more people open wallets and buy these fractals, therefore it has this exponential torque on the upside. And that is really key for it. Now, institutionally, your hedge fund question is the growth of the CME. So we've seen this massive growth in the past, since February the 8th, when Ethereum started trading, of institutions buying Ethereum. last year, when the hedge funds started buying, they didn't go buy Bitcoin and put it into a wallet. They went and used the futures market. Now, there's no leverage with the futures market. It's 100% cash trade, but it's become the proxy and the easiest and cleanest way from an accounting point of view to get a position in it. And what we're seeing with Hive is that Hive is a proxy for those that are afraid or reluctant to go and open an account and exchange and buy Bitcoin or Ethereum. They use Hive as a proxy. And we can see, like yesterday, Hive was up, Bitcoin, Ethereum rolled over, and by the hour, all of a sudden we roll over. We're having 100% correlation for the past 6 months, and you can see it by the hour. So hedge funds are using, in the quant world, using Hive as a proxy for that. That, to me, is just great liquidity. It provides two-way markets, and it creates this growth. The biggest question yesterday on the webcast, which blew me away, we announced it in 24 hours, and 1,500 people came on that webcast. And I received hundreds of questions. But the biggest question was, when are we going to go on NASDAQ? Well, it's a two-part step process. And first of all, you have to register and file with the SEC, as you know, and you have to do a 20F filing. And that 20F filing allows you then to go and apply for either NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. I have companies listed and on NASDAQ, and Jets and GoAU is listed on New York Stock Exchange. So we haven't come to that final conclusion, and we really can't say anything is promissory, but we are set up the process for filling out those registration documents and fast tracking for Hive to become listed in the U.S. and then for Hive to be listed in Asia.
It's all great stuff all around. Really, really exciting stuff, Frank. And just to see how this company grew and being there from the beginning, it's amazing, right? It's amazing. It's in the right trend. It's fantastic. Now, you're one of the few people that own gold and Bitcoin, which, I own gold and Bitcoin as well, but a lot of people say either or. Are you worried about the younger generation of investors? So these are people basically looking at gold as a boring asset, that they see Bitcoin as a better alternative, maybe to hedge against inflation, or even a store of value against governments recklessly spending money and going crazy. But does that concern you? Because again, it's all about like the next generation, and it just seems like the next generation is growing up where Bitcoin is more of that alternative than gold, where gold seems a little bit more boring. Do you think it's going to have an influence on gold? I mean, maybe it has the influence on gold because we're seeing Bitcoin rise. Money, institutional flows are coming out of gold a little bit, which, you probably see them come in because it's cheap here. But I just want to get your thoughts on that, because one thing I really, really love about you is you always surround yourself with young, energetic people who you work with, who you hire, and just brings out the energy in you. You see it in brilliant kids and brilliant people. But I want to get your thoughts on it, because is that a serious concern, or is it something that, hey, maybe they'll come around to gold sooner or later?
I don't think so. There's a classic example. Last week, we had a huge power rolling shortage and freezing weather here in Texas. No power, no heat, no Bitcoin. And that's a real important reality. You need electricity for it to function. And so that's a big limitation. But I think what we have to recognize is a lot of these millennials and Generation X, they all went to GameStop. They all bought the software. They all play gaming, and they know if they're really good, they get a cryptocurrency in that game, and then they can upgrade and upgrade. So the most elite game players are always able to use a digital money form to buy more than that. They don't have to use their own US dollars or their euros or Japanese yen. The game is their currency. So they really relate to a GameStop story. They really relate to digital money and the growth in digital wallets. So I think that that's what's really significant that we're going to see. And the whole thing of millennials and Robinhood going into GameStop, well, all these kids traded game. They all went there. So it's easy for them to buy in Peter Lynch's model. You should invest or trade what you know and what you use. But what I think is going to happen is that gold is the fourth most liquid asset class in the world. Silver is not in central banks, it's gold. The storage is a lot less, it has a value. But 60% of the demand for gold is love, that great love trade. And China and India is 40% of the world's population, and the rising GDP per capita there means they're consuming more gold. In the past 30 years, China and India, affectionately known as Chindia, we're consuming 10% of the world's gold, and now it's pushing 60%. So I don't think that that is going away. And the other 40% is fear, and that's speculative or just money printing. So central banks will be the big player there. And then we'll get back into gold has been up 80% of the time in the past 20 years, 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. Last year was another stellar performer, outperformed the S&P. In fact, for the past 20 years, gold has outperformed the S&P 250%. I mean, that's just mind-boggling data point. And so I don't think gold's all going to be vaporized. I just think it's going to go through this evolution of being a core asset, 10 to 20% of a portfolio, to rebalance, because the G20 finance ministers, and in particular central bankers, are all hooked on the dopamine rush from MMT. Not, that's the new drug, MMT, modern monetary theory, approaching by giving out money here and there and whatever socially they think is best way to do it. This money printing just creates a greater value for hard assets, and gold will always have a role that way. Now, speculative and being disruptive is Bitcoin and blockchain in particular. So that's why we have companies like we own Abix, which with Robert Freeland is a big investment, because they're going to do LNG hedging with blockchain in Singapore. And LNG is the biggest form of transformation of energy. If you look at Kathy Woods and what she talks about at her ARC funds, the ETFs that have spectacular growth. I'm talking about 3 billion to 15 billion to 60 billion this year. She's investing in a big, and it looks like blockchain as being a very significant, and Bitcoin is a subset of that. So I remain very bullish on these asset classes. And the last thing to tell you about, Tesla is more volatile than Bitcoin.
Yes. And you're talking from analytical perspective as a fact, right? Just say
absolutely. And so it's okay for Tesla to put it on their balance sheet, because it is a disruptive company buying a disruptive. But I don't think it'll go well with Coca-Cola buying it. I don't think it's going to go well with General Motors buying it. These are not respected disruptive industries. And so that's the big game changer that I see. And the SEC will probably come after other companies if they started speculating, just like years ago, back in 1980, if you put gold in your balance sheet for speculating as a public company, the regulators would seem to get upset about it.
No. All right. So we're going to stay, it makes sense. I'm going to stay on this crypto topic just for another minute, because I'm going to ask you, right now you talk about Ethereum, you talk about, Bitcoin. Is there any other cryptocurrencies that you're looking into through Hive? Maybe it's Cardano, Bitcoin, you have Bitcoin, you have Stellar, you have Litecoin. Some of these others that, their market caps are growing tremendously, but are you looking at those, any of those that you like, or is it just kind of, hey, I'm sticking with Ethereum? Yeah.
No, we mine the other ones. There's a time when you mine them. But what we found is that if we even put 20% of our capacity to mine Ethereum Classic, all of a sudden we're 40% of its volume. So that's very dangerous. You don't want to be over 50%. So we've got to be really careful when we go to these other coins, because we are a whale. We're not a minnow. We're a whale. And so when it comes to Ethereum and these other smaller coins, if we turn 10 megawatts onto these with our technology and the quality of our GPUs, so it's very fragile.
So let's talk about and move on from this, right? So let's talk, because I love the crypto argument. Everybody's so concerned about they getting emails like crazy now. So I'm glad we stayed on that for a little bit. But I want to talk about travel related stocks. You created JETS, which is the largest airline ETF. I want to get your thoughts. You're someone who follows these trends tremendously. I'm a big believer that we are going to see an explosion, absolute explosion in travel that's not being priced in right now. People are dying to get out. It's going to be hard to get hotels soon. You live in Texas, just open up 100%. I think we're going to see Florida next. We're going to see more states open up, and hopefully as the vaccine gets distributed, which is getting distributed very, very quickly here and globally, people are going to feel more comfortable. But talk about ETF, because what is it like? It's huge now. It's monstrous, right? We talked about it when Buffett, remember back when Buffett bought it, and then when he decided, and we both thought it was the greatest buying opportunity ever, when he got rid of them, like, man, it's crazy. And sure enough, this thing is through the roof now, right?
Frank, it was a year ago this time. I had to lay off people. The assets had collapsed. And all of a sudden, JETS goes from just under 100 million to 35 million. And in comes the minnows coming through the Robin Hoods. And during that whole period of March, April, and May, 25,000 Robinhood, because you could get the data back then, minnows came in. And as the minnows came in for an ecosystem, and you have price discovery, in came came in the tunas, and came the groupers, and came then the barracudas and the sharks, and all of a sudden the whales. And it started to grow in volume, and the more it grew, and then a bigger account. So now it trades over 3 million shares a day, and it's over $3 billion. And what the kids did their analysis on, and I believe they're much more sophisticated than my age in the 90s when baby boomers discovered mutual funds and stocks. This new generation is much more sophisticated using the internet to get data. And they said that every time there's a big crisis globally, airlines take it on the chin. They drop 70%. A year later, they're up 80 to 120%. So you saw this sort of speculation. Buffett gets out, and immediately a week later, they take off. And those kids, the 25,000 that were early, are up over 60% on their money. So I don't think they're that dumb. And I have a complete different narrative on price discovery, because I'm a big believer it's really helped the ecosystem. It's helped the SPAC market. So there's many different forms of capital being created today, which is very exciting because it gives a little investor the opportunity to make big money. And a lot of them are going to your podcast, going to YouTube. And that's how they're learning about stocks and ideas. So it is a very new generation. The airlines industry is adapted. Business travel is not going to be booming right away because of Zoom. But tourism, yes. And we're seeing it. Southwest Airlines started a nonstop from Phoenix down to Cabo San Lucas. You're seeing from smaller cities in New York and Pennsylvania going down to Florida, not going through the big hubs. They're using AI to adapt and to adjust. The airplanes are cleaner, spotter. I think going forward, it's going to be a lot safer and cleaner to travel. I've not had a cold for a whole year because I've not been flying. That's a big benefit. So now I think these airplanes are going to be spotlessly clean, which will help the tourist boom. And now the TSA publishes every day how many people they clear. Very, very important data point, because the airlines Jets ETF is following it. And what we saw was that the airlines, whereas 2.7 million people a year were flying, 2 million Americans were flying every day, 700,000 coming from Asia, Europe, and Latin America, and TSA would screen. Now that number fell to 90,000, and then it climbed to 1.3 million. And then it went back down to 1 million. So what you're seeing is that the application of a 50-day moving average is being applied to this data point, and speculation comes into trading jets with that. And the airlines themselves are adapting, adjusting to tourist travel. So Kevin O'Leary said he's shorting jets. Well, good luck. If the economy is that ever bad advice, in my opinion, and he's a great guy, but that's shorting it. I think that people can't wait, like you said, to travel.
Yeah, people are dying to travel. And just to show you guys here, this is incredible, Frank. I got to show people this 3.8 billion, man. That's amazing. I mean, to put that in perspective, where was this number, Frank? Where was this number, like, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And just, I mean, that's incredible.
Well, we launched it 6 years ago. It was launched 6 years ago, and it went up to 100 million. And this time last year was like 75 million, and it fell in March to 35 million. And then in came the speculative investors that had great rational reasons, and they were quite accurate.
That's great. That's unbelievable.
And that's where it's all kept in my company, which is trades on NASDAQ, U.S. Global, GROW. And it has been a recipient, and it's had spectacular growth in revenue and earnings because of the unprecedented success of jets. But Frank, jets took 5 years. You and I first met, we were going to the Boeing facility up in Seattle.
That's great.
And people don't realize it cost me $5 million, $1 million a year to put that out through the information, the education, and then it takes off. And so I'm very thrilled about it, but it's 5 years and then it's overnight success.
That was some trip. That was awesome. That was a while ago, maybe 2017, maybe 16, I forget. But we went to the Boeing facility, guys. Everett, Washington, definitely go. Unbelievable. I mean, we saw the rollout of the MAX, and we all know what happened now. But now it's back on track, and yeah, it's just pretty incredible with everything that's going on. So, really exciting stuff for you all around. And I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your blog. So you write, I don't know how you have time to write, but it's a blog that you have on the U.S. Global Investors website, and it's right here. And, you know, it's cool because you get perspective, and it seems like it gives you a chance to talk about whatever's really on your mind, what's going on, economy, different sectors, different stocks. So, you know, talk about that, Frank talk, and it seems like you really like doing that.
You know, the big thing that's interesting for me is that the 10-year government bond, I always use a quant approach to trading. And I like to look at the trend is your friend moving averages, but what is a sigmas? And looking at what is this percentage change of a sigma for each asset class has a different DNA of volatility. But the 10-year government bond, going back 10 years, its price yield has appreciated so fast, so quickly that it's up 2.5 sigma. Well, that just says mathematically over the next 60 days, we could have a correction that it goes back to the mean. It's not going to go back to 50 basis points, but that correction would all of a sudden propel gold and will propel digital currencies, et cetera, and the stock market. So that's the most recent story. But what I have is I have great research people. And what I tried to do was create this blog for the shareholders, and it grew from there. So every week, the portfolio managers have to write 3 strengths and weaknesses that happened this past week that impacted gold or China region or Eastern Europe region or global resources, and luxury goods were the only luxury goods mutual fund. And then what are the 3 opportunities or strengths that can come next week? So what data points coming out? Is it PMI? Is it GDP? Is it some economic data point that can have ramifications? So that's what they help me, and they put all that stuff together. And then the marketing team puts lipstick on it, make sure it's all in compliance. And I give the thesis of where I think I want to comment. So I was looking at my sigmas for crypto, and then looking at 10-year government bond. And that the story last week was we're basically an overbought on yields, and mathematically odds favor a correction in this surge in yields.
No, that's cool. I love the blog. I get it emailed directly to me. It's really cool, guys. You go check it out. You share the website, and we'll provide links and everything for our podcast. I guess the last thing here, Frank, is I like to have a little fun where, you know, you love to exercise. You jog every day. I'm not going to say you love to say how old you are on your Twitter page. Some people, I never worry about age. I never think that's a reflection of how old you are. It's how you feel. But how many miles do you jog a day? I'm curious.
I try to do it by the week. It's more like counting a week. Can I run a marathon a week is my goal. So that's basically, can you run 5 miles a day? If you're just going to run from Monday to Friday, it's going to be 6 miles a day. That's the goal. And I turn 66 on the weekend.
No, that's, wow, young. So, Frank, you're very good.
I run slow.
Listen, you're running. That doesn't matter.
9-minute miles have stretched up to 12-minute miles.
That's great stuff. Well, frankly, I mean, you're a good friend. I love having you on. I always learn something. My guests always learn something. From my guests, but I know my audience always learns a lot from you. You always share ideas with us, which are filled through your funds and everything. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. You know that my audience loves you. It's an open invite whenever you want to come on. And congratulations on your success, because, yeah, I know how hard you work. I know you're out there, even at your age, you're out there on field trips that I've been on, which is awesome to see. You can still see the passion, and, you know, just with Jets doing well and Hive doing well, everything seems to be coming together. And I think we both agree that gold's going to be doing well. So I just want to say congratulations on all your success, and thank you so much for coming on.
Well, it's great being with you, and you're filled with optimism, and that's so important to investing, Frank, because there's always so much gloom and doom. And I try to tell people, if there's a hurricane, then get the house builder stocks. Don't get the insurance stocks. Just think this way. Yeah. And during Obama's era, everyone was Obamacare. It's bad. If you look at the healthcare stocks, they had a 45% CAGR for those 8-year period. I mean, unbelievable. So whatever negative is possible, and that's what you do, Frank. And that's why I think your program is spectacular. You look at the glasses half full.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate those kind words. And of course, hopefully you'll come back on really, really soon.
Thank you.